How's everybody doing? Woo! Guys, have a great time at the con? All right. My name is Dean. This is Michael. We are from the SEB Network, also known as Sonic Eclectic, and we are thrilled and honored to moderate this panel, second year in a row. Thank you, guys.
All right, we got to start this out. Everybody say, woo! Yeah! All right. So, let's begin. Okay, so first we'll start out with our man, Neil.
Hello,
Neil Gibson.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Neil Gibson is a writer. Would I say a psychological thriller writer?
You may, yes.
Awesome. So, Neil, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a psychological writer. I'm a big fan of comics, and I actually came to comics late. I started reading them in my mid-20s because I assumed comics were for, I'm sorry to say this, but I thought comics was all superheroes or for kids, so I didn't want to read it. Then someone gave me Watchmen when I was in my mid-20s, and I couldn't believe how intelligent it was. I became a huge fan of it, but I never thought I would be, and a lot like I think quite a few of you guys maybe didn't think you could do it yourselves, and I just didn't have any ambition to do it. And then I just read loads of comics as a fan for a decade, and I was stuck in a project in the Middle East, and I decided, you know what, rather than watching TV in the evenings, why don't I try writing? And people really liked what I did, and so I put my first book out, it went to #1 in the charts, and I thought, thank you. Sorry, I didn't quite hear that. Could I get louder, please? Thank you. Okay, thank you. And so then I had a dilemma. I didn't really have this ambition for this stuff, but I love good comics, and that's what I wanted to do with my life. So you get one chance in your life to do what you want. So if you have a passion, you may fail, but if you end up being 80 years old on your deathbed or whatever, if you've never tried, you'll regret not trying more. Yep. So that's why you're all here, and I think I applaud you for actually taking a step and coming to this panel. So that's me.
Awesome. Next, we have sci-fi fantasy writer April Adams.
Yep.
Callie. I've always known that I wanted to be a writer, but I really didn't start until I was 40 years old, maybe 6 years ago. And once I got the shot, I knew what it was what I was meant to do. And it just kind of snowballed. My first book took me almost 3 years, and then my second a year, and then the next one 6 months, and then of course like the last one's dragged on. It's killing me, but still I know that. And sometimes when I lose focus and I feel like it's a job, I hear people talking about their jobs and how much they hate it, and I realize I do this not because it's a job, but because it's what I love to do, and it's what I was meant to do, and it keeps me going all the time. And the Comic-Cons.
Our next panelist, Cecilia Peters.
Celia.
Peters.
Get it right.
And she is a sci-fi film creator.
Yeah, thank you. Right on. I am a sci-fi filmmaker who's based in the Midwest. I'm a native Ohioan, but I lived in New York for a really long time. And I'm excited about making sci-fi film. I've always been a fan since I was a little girl. My parents watched Star Trek, and I loved it. Star Trek, Blade Runner, like everything, you name it. But as much as I loved it, I always wondered, why is there nobody who looks like me on the screen? Why is there nobody who looks like me who's driving this story, who's having the adventure? So, I became a filmmaker, and I started doing film, and I loved it. And it's that thing where it's like timeless. I could do it 24/7 and never know. And so it was just a natural progression for me to start making sci-fi film. So I've done short film, and right now I'm in the process of doing my first indie project. So my first indie feature, which is called Godspeed. And I'm knee deep in it. And in terms of the project, developing the project and getting it shot. So I'm excited to share what I've learned, because I've learned a lot.
Next, we have sci-fi fantasy writer creator, and of course, the founder of Narazu.
Right.
That would be Charisse Renee Murphy. Dun, dun, dun!
Hey guys. First of all, thank you so much for coming. Can everybody hear us in the back? Woo, for the back! All right. Thank you. All right, I'll try not to do that. I heard the screeching. Let's see. I never thought I would be a writer. Gosh, I've been a sci-fi fan since I was 7 years old, and my mom, who's in the back of the room, took me to see Empire Strikes Back in the theater. And I never looked back. A couple years ago, 5 years ago, I got a vision for my first sci-fi story, and I didn't even know if I could write it, but I knew I wanted to try, because when you've been a sci-fi fan forever and you get an original idea, you do not drop that ball. So I decided to try to write it, and I'm on my 6th book now. So the first lesson is, once you start writing, you can't stop. And that you should try it too. All right, and I'm so excited to share what I've learned with you.
I just want to say something. Last year, I asked you were going to stop with the trilogy. You just say up to your 6th book.
Yeah, it's crazy. See, it's like a bug, a virus. Yeah.
And we have our comic book creators, Greg Burnham and Marcus Williams.
Let's probably see if this works. Okay, Marcus Williams. I do the illustrations and co-creator of Tuskegee Airs.
And I'm Greg Burnham. I write, co-creator, and Marcus kind of sells himself short because he's a big idea guy. So we're basically, I'm typing it, but the words are like both of us pretty much. So yeah.
Start.
Oh, what about us?
How'd you start?
I'll go because he's
yeah.
not prepared. First of all, I want to say I knew that we had like some type of energy because when I was like in the 1st grade, we used to have these things called book fairs for all you young people. And I ordered like the Empire Strikes Back novel. It was like 300-something pages. My teacher was like, "Are you insane?" I was like, "Nah, I got this." So I had like a big dictionary and I would read. And every time I get to a word I didn't know, I pull it up in the dictionary and I write the definition so I can know what that word meant. And that's when I decided I wanted to be a writer. Unfortunately, I didn't know anybody that was a writer. I didn't know anybody that looked like me that was a writer. And I like to play sports and stuff. So I didn't really start writing seriously again until, I dabbled, but when I was in college, I was supposed to be playing basketball. I had an injury. I went through a depression, not like a kill yourself depression, but like I'm going to stay home and, just write stuff depression. And that's when I started again. Later on, I met this guy because I was looking for somebody to illustrate a comic book idea that I had. This was about 16 years ago. And he was the way that he draws is like, I was like, that's it. Like we were supposed to know each other a long time ago. And it's been 16 years, but we finally got something that looks like it's gonna pop.
Okay, so for anyone that just walked into the room, we're talking about completing your first indie project. Now, streaming live, everyone say hello. Hello. So everyone watching, you need to be here next year and support. And of course, anyone here, after this, let everybody know how excellent this was and how they need to participate next time. But we're going to jump into it. We have a few questions for our creators. And then it's all about you guys. So think about some questions about your indie project, everything from funding to how to put a team together. Just think about it. We'll go from there.
Just the best question I get asked gets these books, by the way.
Nice.
So we'll start with the comics, right? Comic-Con? Right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
You got your idea, you got everything. Where do you start?
I love it. Tell us what you want.
Where do you start with when you get your idea with your comic book and everything? What are the steps? How do you get to that? Your journey is your first step, and then all those steps afterwards. What's the first step? What direction do you go to?
You guys.
Oh, well, I've answered this question a couple times during the con. A lot of young artists, a lot of young creators are coming up to the table asking that same question. My answer is you have to be excited about, for me it starts with a character. It's kind of like the center of an onion, not the other way around. It's like you don't create the world and then create a character. So if you come up with a character that makes you excited, Tuskegee Airs started with the characters. We said, let's just make some young Tuskegee Airmen pilots. But then, we didn't want to disrespect the pilots or the families, so we said, let's set it 80 years in the future. And then that was like the first buzz of excitement, like, oh crap, wait, what is that gonna look like? And it was like, okay, we're gonna have cool technology and planes. What if their planes turn into robots? And then, and it's just like all this excitement started happening, and then the characters just kept, blossoming with all this cool stuff. They're like, well, hey man, can we throw martial arts in there? Yes. Yes, we can. Can they have weapons? Yes. I get to design the weapons.
This guy, like, I get to design the weapons.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. He comes back with, like, cannons that are bigger than the person that's supposed to be holding it.
Yeah.
But he's got technology involved, and he's like, he can actually explain why, a 5'2" person is wielding.
So when you get to that point, what's the next step? Do you find a publisher? You do it yourself?
No.
For us, and this is the weird part, we started building the social media presence. We've been studying Kickstarters and all that good stuff. So we started building our social media. Marcus started more so than I, but once we came up with the idea, we shot holes in it, because that's what we do. We tear each other down and then build each other back up. It's like, okay, we're ready to show the world. We took a couple of months to kind of build a buzz online, and we released a Kickstarter. And so we were funded through Kickstarter to where we're able to publish 2 graphic novels and do some other good stuff too.
Okay, Charisse, I have a question for you. Now, you're a sci-fi writer. You also write historical fiction and children's books. Now, for the people that want to become novelists, storytellers, in whatever form, do you focus on one and then expand? Like, how's that process? And are there any pitfalls of doing different genres at the same time?
I'd say if you're starting your first project, focus, because it's overwhelming. You're already scared. You've got your doubts. You've got your this. You've got your that. So I wouldn't start with a million projects, because that's almost a built-in excuse not to get any of them done. Pick one, the one that's calling to you, the one that you're maybe most afraid of, which is probably the one that needs to come out the most. But pick one that's really calling to you and focus on that. The first thing I do, and April, you can chime in, the first thing I do with the story, yes, that's right, I called you out, is I start with a story outline. What is your story? What happens? I met someone just, I don't know, in the last couple of days that said that they wrote like 100 pages and had to throw it away because they realized they went off on a tangent. Now, I'm a wife, I'm a mother of 2 kids. Finding time to write is so hard. If I had to throw away 100 pages, I might slip my wrist. I mean, I wouldn't be able to deal with that. But what helps me avoid situations like that is that I start with a story outline. So I know before I start writing the first chapter, what is this story about? And you might start there. And then I go from the story outline to a chapter outline. So I know before I start writing the book, not just what happens, because that's the story outline, but the chapter outline tells me how it happens. It also helps me craft what's the point of each chapter, what's the tension of each chapter. Because as I'm putting my book out, there's no reason for a reader to turn to the next chapter unless I give them one. And that has to be in the chapter before it. So the chapter outline helps me understand what it is the point of each chapter, what's going to happen, and how the tension plays out throughout the entire story. And then I start writing, so that every time I sit down to write, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm on chapter 1. The point is that Jan meets Pam, and this is what happens at the end of that chapter. And then I know if I've met my goal before I move on to the next chapter. So I would not start everywhere. I would start with one project and drill down.
And actually, April, I would like you to answer this part to it, because with Gwen 7, the Gwen 7 saga, you actually span across 8 books. Mm-hmm. Now, that's great advice for focusing on one project and getting that done. But in your case, where you're taking a specific story and expanding it to 8 books, How do you know what to put in book 7? How do you actually create that structure?
One of the things is those 100 pages, instead of throwing them away, save them for the next book. You're already halfway done. I mean, I really, because there was so many things in my first book. It's like, oh, I want to talk about this and I want to talk about this. It's like, well, you know what? Those are great ideas just for more books, because your characters will be their own people eventually, and when they have more to tell, it's just more story for you to tell, and it's just more opportunity.
Are there any TV production or filmmakers here? Okay, and into sci-fi, fantasy? Okay, awesome. Celia Peters?
Yes.
I'm also a director, writer,
Are you?
and I have a problem because I love sci-fi. How do I do that budget-wise? I mean, I'm looking at you're independent, you're doing it yourself. What are the challenges of creating sci-fi, when not having like $1 billion to spend on a production?
Well, I think I'm lucky because I write character-driven science fiction. So mine is not set 3,000 years in the future, and it's not on, the Nebuchadnezzar. It's here on Earth.
You mean it's on Earth?
Yes, it's on Earth.
Now.
But it's near future.
Okay.
And so for me, what that means is figuring out visually how to create a world that's feasible, that's believable, but that is distinctly different than what we're living now. Not so different that we don't recognize it. And I think that definitely helps. And while I was writing, so essentially there's 2 different features that I'm kind of in different stages of developing. One that will be the first one that I shoot, and I wrote that to be my first feature.
Unfortunately, I suck at social media, and if you guys know social media, you're steps way beyond me, because that's how you really create your fans, and they're the ones going to help you get stuff made and get your stuff known. So what I have to do is, because I don't really understand it, I found the most passionate fans, and I asked them to manage the social media for me. And so basically they just send me, I'm not joking, they send me instructions every day. Neil, at this day at Comic-Con, you need a photo of the booth, you need to do this, this, and this. And so and sometimes I forget, and I get abuse from my fans. Say, Neil, you're not doing what you're told. But that's how I do it with because I chat to everyone as well, because to be in the creative industries, you are reliant on people who like your products and like you. You're reliant on your fans. So I try and do whatever I can for them. And some people always ask me at every convention, where do you get your ideas from? So I show them, well, it's easy. I'll write one for you right now. And I give them a 5-minute time limit, and I write my own story for them. And I give them a piece of paper. And these fans are delighted because they have something as a souvenir they take away. And anything you can do that's unique for them, like if you're an artist, you've got a great skill set there. You do a little sketch of the fan, you give it to them. They'll love that forever. And so you're just giving as much you can to your fans that you can. And if you know social media, you can do more, but I am stupid at that.
All right. Marcus.
Yes.
Marcus and Greg. I've heard this advice from a lot of different people. When it comes to working on projects, you don't have to do everything. Be good at whatever you're good at, do it, but get a team, right? Have anybody heard that before? Right.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And I've also heard of how things kind of split kind of bad between people and who owns what and who's doing what. How do you know who's the right person for the team? And what do you need to put in place so that way you take care of the business side of it? And people really need to know that.
Spilled some water. I got excited. Spilled some water. We've already been through this before. So really, Marcus and I, we look at it like we're the team. Now we have realized that we can't do everything on our own. We've tried to do the social media, the art, the writing, all this promotion, but we've gone through this before. So at the end of the day, like if you don't have people that believe that have the same vision and that actually love that vision, like we look at these characters, like this whole thing is like a child of ours, Mm-hmm. And so that's how we choose to go about it right now, is make sure that, like we know we can trust each other. We know that we're both going to do whatever we can to get the work done. Mm-hmm. We are looking for some backup artists. Anybody? But our process is different. We've been doing this for a long time. We actually set up a business years ago with some people that were supposed to be able to handle, the financial side and the business stuff so we could focus on creating content, and that didn't work so well. We ended up doing everything.
Yeah.
So, trust is big for us because we're single fathers. I have a real, not a real job, I'm sorry. I have a day job. Marcus doesn't. But so it's like every bit of our time is so expensive, So it's like we can't waste it. If I have to do something myself, I'd rather do it than wait around for somebody. But
I think it's starting out. If you're building a team, if you're looking for people to help build your vision, it's your vision. You have to find someone else that either feeds, the energy. Because I told someone before, I said, money is a resource. The most important resource of every creator is your energy. I don't care what anyone else says. Time is very valuable, yes. But you can block out an hour after your work day, after dealing with the kids, after driving through traffic. You said, "Oh, I got 8 o'clock is my hour." If you run out of energy before 8 o'clock, you're gonna fall asleep at your computer, at your desk, while writing your book, whatever it is. I've done it like a million times, and all I can do is forgive myself the next day, saying, "Well, dude, anyone that has a problem with that, I'm sorry." Because I'm holding the world on my shoulders. I have 2 kids I take care of. They have to eat every day for some reason. I'm
multiple times.
Yeah, and I'm there. I hold myself accountable for every ounce of energy. I don't point my finger at anyone else. So
Actually,
if you bring in,
okay, finish your thought.
I was just saying, if you bring in someone else to your team, to your vision, to your energy pool, make sure they feed that. When we get together, if anyone ever caught video, if we would have videotaped what it looked like when we were coming up with Tuskegee Airs, it would have looked like 2 grown kids, like jumping
high
around.
fives,
It was like, oh my God,
cartwheels in the living
It's
room.
interesting you brought up the concept of energy, and we have more questions, but we're going to go back and forth, get you some questions from the audience and then some other questions that we've prepared. But I wanted to ask Sharice a question, especially because we talk about energy and doing different projects. What needs to be in place as far as like trademarking? Because you, again, with the kids' books and then sci-fi and then, the romantic, the new book, what's the official title of the new book?
It's To Find Your Historical Romance.
Right. And do you have to trademark all those different things? What do you have to put in place legally as a creator?
All your work should be copywritten. You can do that very easily in the U.S. If people say, "Oh, I have a book that I'd love to share with you," I ask them if it's copywritten. And if it's not, I tell them not to send it to me. Because that's your intellectual property, and the truth is it won't help. It won't stop someone from stealing it, but it will give you a basis to protect yourself and fight for your work. So that's the first and most important thing that I would tell a new person to this space, and that you don't need to pay anybody to do that. It's literally $25 or $35 at libraryofcongress.gov. They have a link to copyright, and you can do it yourself. There are places that will charge you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to do something that they are paying $35 to do.
Wow.
So that's what I would say, but I'd love to.
And it was, and Narazu, this is what inspired that conversation, because you were talking about finding a name and controlling it, and we're going to bring that up in one of our questions. Yes, yeah.
Can I just piggyback on that with regard to screenwriting? The same thing goes. It's really important when you have a script to understand that what you can protect is the words on your pages. You can't protect the idea. So that's why you see multiple movies about the same thing, because you can't copyright an idea, but you can copyright your script. And it's really important before you send out to competitions or any kind of, any contest, anything. I would definitely make sure that it's registered with the Library of Congress, and just know that it takes forever for the certificate to get back to you. Just send it off and know that it's going to take a minute for it to come back.
Would you suggest the Writers Guild?
Yes, and I was going to say, and
Okay.
also with the Writers Guild of America, and that can be done completely online. And I think it's actually maybe either the same price or a little bit less than the Library of Congress. But that way, it's registered that you wrote the script as of this day, and so if anything happened, you have that protection, you're covered by that. But it is important to do that. I mean, I think it's just a good habit to get into. Your work deserves it. You know, you've done it, you've poured your heart and soul into it. Protect it.
Now, April Adams, you have a very interesting background. Is it true you were a U.S. Army paratrooper?
Yes.
Wow, give it up. Does that show up in your work? And,
Yeah.
and how, and again, so it's a learning tool, how can we grab from our personal experience and properly put that in our work? For your advice.
Yeah, write about what you know. All of the military sci-fi in my books is firsthand, and I actually had a drill sergeant tell me this in basic training. Your worst experiences make for the best stories. No matter how hard it rained, that delayed flight, everything that was horrible at the time is going to be your best story. And those are the ones you love telling. It's like, you're not going to believe what happened to me. And so that's how some of the great ones start. Best of times, worst of times.
And Neil, you draw from a very interesting, dark, and I say sarcastic side. Do you ever run out, like writer's block? Like, how do you keep going?
I'm a very sick man. I don't think. Wow, now I do have writer's block. No, I don't think it's hard to come up with ideas. Really, it's not a problem. I think it's the main advice feedback I give to you guys is what these guys said at the start, is that the most important thing is just to finish something. And if you're just starting, start small. Like, just do a short story, do a one-page story, or do like a 4-minute film rather than trying to do a feature film. But as for ideas, I don't think that's a problem for many people. I think actually most people out here probably have a problem when they have too many ideas and they just pick one.
Are we able to form a line on that side for some people that have questions? How you guys feel so far?
I hope this is helpful.
You having a good time?
Yeah.
Cool.
We gotta ask a question to win the free book, right?
It's
Okay.
a good one, so you'll want it.
I'm lazy. I don't know.
Okay, what is the first question? And if you want to, someone specific to address it, you can, or you could just leave it open for the panel.
Hi, my name's Fabio.
Hi.
Think this thing- I go to college here in Manhattan. My question is for all the authors and creators up here. I have my ideas set and my concept set for the project I'm working on, but it's actually a very small thing I'm having an issue with. How do you guys come up with the names for the characters in your stories? Like, do you have somewhere you start with that, or just come up with a name off the top of your head?
I will start with that because I love choosing character names. I love it so much. And usually I do research on the meaning of names. And that really speaks to how I choose a character's name, because I know who the character is. And so I want to have a name that kind of reflects that, because I think in some kind of abstract, energetic way, the audience will pick up on that. It'll be part of the experience of the whole of the film. So that's kind of what I do. And sometimes, sometimes it may be a name that I've encountered in my life, the name sticks with me, and I'm like, this is going on my list of character names.
Awesome question. Anybody else want to chime on that before the next question?
I'll chime in. That's one of the hardest things actually for me to come up with, is both the titles for books and the names for characters. And if I don't have it already in my mind, it will probably be whoever gave me my coffee at Starbucks. Or I will literally text one of my kids, like, who's sitting next to you in French class? And they'll text me back, and guess what? You're Captain Condlef now.
One of the things that I do, I'll pull, when I'm writing or creating a certain character, I'll try to figure out whatever kind of energy that person, I have in their mind. And I'll actually pull from my Rolodex of names of people that I've dealt with it won't always be the same exact name or anything, but I kind of can use that as an example. It just helps me because it helps to build the character, after that jerk that pushed you down in the 3rd grade,
Step 1, have 2 kids, and then name your characters after those.
Yeah, we kind of did that too.
And then, then throw other names that sound cool at the wall. and it doesn't have to like be real names like Mars and stuff. Any other thing that you can find that sounds cool. If it sounds cool, you'll be surprised. It may sound kind of corny at first, but then people will latch onto it. Yeah, you're like, what? The dude's name is like, Pole? Yeah. Yeah. Senior Pole. But yeah.
Awesome question. Thank you. Next question. And can you speak up just so people in the back could make sure they hear?
For all the writers, I've been writing my own book for the past few years. In fact, I've been revising the first one and finished the second one while writing the first one. I was just wondering for advice if I've been trying to dream of making my own fantasy science fiction franchise one day, and I was wondering if you had any advice. And I guess the promise, I've been editing a lot. I'm just worried about it not being good enough. And how did you guys get to the point where you were able to get it, I guess, out and know it was so? Cause my worst fear is that being rejected, I guess, and just trying to figure out how to get it without going crazy over it, but getting revised enough to where it's ready. Well,
Feedback is actually a very important process, and rejection is tough, but the more you get rejected, the stronger you become.
Mm-hmm.
What's very important with feedback is listening to it, and also choosing not to listen to it. Because if someone just says, that's rubbish, well, excuse my language, fuck them. No, and I'm very serious about this, because if they say, well, I don't like this because of this, and you actually think, oh, that's right, that helps, that's good feedback. So feedback can be positive or negative, but unless it helps you get better, it's not good feedback. And you will have people who don't like your work, and that's fine. You can make the best tomato soup in the world, but if someone doesn't like tomatoes, they're not going to like the soup. So just listen to feedback, and if you agree with it, that will help you get better.
Thank you.
Awesome question.
I
Next
wanted to
question.
say- I'm sorry, I wanted to say something to that. Have you let someone besides you edit it? Or is it just you?
No, I'm working with someone and paying the editor for the book.
Okay. Oh, and this is a person that you respect who's helping you edit the book.
Yeah.
Has their feedback been positive?
If he likes it, yeah. He's better at the technical stuff than I am. So.
Okay. Well, let someone else look at it after that. And then you're going to let someone else look at it after that. And you're going to cry, and you're going to be sad, and you're going to take it personally, and then you're going to get over it. And then you're going to work on your book, and then let someone else look at it. Until you get your crying down to a good 30 minutes. And that's it.
Yeah, you are your own worst critic. I can guarantee it. You're gonna be holding yourself back more than anybody. Although she's right, I get a review and I bawl. It's like, they're right. I really have to change that. So, yeah, take it and move on, and trust yourself.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, my name's Tiffany, and I'm really just getting started. So I kind of wanted to ask like the whole panel, but I guess mostly Neil, because you're like psychological. How do you develop a character to the point of where you're happy enough with it to create the world around them?
I kept quiet when we went to the character sections earlier on because I think everyone else on this table believes characters are the main focus of stories, and I think a lot of people believe that. I actually don't. I believe there's 4 elements to a story. First of all, is the dialogue. Is the dialogue cracking? Does it sound like that's really good? You have quotable lines that you can print on T-shirts. That's a great dialogue. Then you need to have a great plot. So if the dialogue's interesting, it'll keep you short-term interested. What gets you getting longer interested is the story going somewhere? It's really interesting. What gets you invested really long-term is the characters. And then what gets you people dressing up in cosplay is the universe behind it. So you need all those elements to me. I don't think my stories always start with the plot, not the character, and then the characters come out afterwards, and I refine it afterwards. So in terms of actually answering your question as to how do you know if the character's complete, my strategy is not typical, and I make sure the plot is good first, and I come back and refine the characters afterwards. But I always make sure the motivation behind everyone's actions makes sense. People can have very messed up motivations. There's a story about this guy who wanted to kill his children because he loved them, because he felt that he was a failure, and if they grew up, right now they're happy as kids, but if they grew up and they saw what he was like, they'd be upset, they'd think he's a failure. So right now, if he killed them, he's doing them a favor. Now that's logical in his own head, but it's messed up by everyone else's. So every character has to have a clear motivation. And so I think the other people may have a better answer for how you know your character is complete, because that's not my process.
That actually helps a whole lot because I have a really good plot, but I'm really having a hard time with the characters, so that actually helps me to like further the plot and like have a good story, and then like put the characters in that fit in that story and have their motivations.
Yeah, I'm awesome.
Yes, you are. And I would love the rest of you to have feedback as well for my question.
I would say for me, because I lead with characters, I tend to know, like I sort of know at the core what they are and what they're about. And maybe it's I know in the beginning what they're going to be struggling with. And so I kind of think about like why would this be a struggle for a person? What kind of person would struggle with this issue? What kind of person would go from point A to point K? And just sort of build, but I also think that characters evolve. I mean, for me, they're evolving and growing as I write this story. So just like a human being, you know, hopefully a real human being, you're growing, right, your whole life. You would hope. So it's a process. It's a process, but I think it works in tandem with plot because you kind of know what their journey is going to be, and so at the end of that journey, then hopefully they've been changed somehow.
I think about, for me, I look at, there's so many properties that I've been a fan of throughout my life. Avatar, Last Airbender, the cartoon, Aang, you know, I watched the rest of Korra and all this stuff, and I'm rewatching it, the Avatar, Last Airbender with my kids, and they're losing their mind. I'm like, this is great. But when I got through with all of it, I started saying I want another character to fall in love with. So I just started, I do this a lot where I'll just create fan fictions. And it's based on what excites me about about a good character. Looking at any of those, think of any story you've ever read, seen on TV, cartoon. Think about the characters that excited you the most. For me, I just look back into that pool and I'm like, I love the heart of that character. I love, the Princess Mononoke is my favorite film animated. I love that story. I love every character because there's no one is evil by any good standard to say you're just an evil person. Everyone had their own motives, and it was just you had this protagonist that was in the middle of meeting all these people with motives. But I loved the heart and characters and all that whole film. The mom, the wolf mom, she was great character. She was like, I'll kill you if you come back here, okay? She had a motive for that. But I look back at all of the characters I've seen over my life, and I come to these really, really cool things to say, that character excites me. And this is the new character I would make based on that energy. And usually you can come, throw in all this good stuff. I want a character with heart. I want a character that's funny. I want a character that's brave. And you start writing their life pretty much from those little pieces. So that's what I usually start doing, and I keep doing fan fiction. I need to stop.
All right, can we get the next question? And we might have to move a little quicker on the questions. Please, no one else stand up because we want to try to see as close as we can to get everybody that's so far online.
Hi, Nick. You guys have mentioned that it's indeed where you have like many ideas for stories at once. So my question, I'm working on a couple of novels myself, and the problem is that I'll frequently work on one novel, and all of a sudden a character from that novel I'll realize, wait, that he needs to be in his own novel, or where one element will inspire another novel. So how do you focus on one idea at a time, or if one idea inspires another, how do you choose which to write first? I guess is my question.
I'd say whichever one you're more passionate about. If you have 300 pages about one character, you need to go with him and run with it. But keep all your notes. And I mean, I've seriously written 2, sometimes 3 books at the same time, but I'm still focusing on which one is going to come out first. And you got to kind of keep that in mind as well. If your books are going to be related, especially chronologically, which one needs to come out first, and focus on that one. Okay. Anybody else?
I just wanted to say you're allowed to take notes and outline about anything that comes to mind, but that is not a reason to distract yourself from what it is you're doing. So if you're writing about, David, and then suddenly you start thinking about Carol, you can stop and outline, sketch notes, do what you need to do about Carol, but you were writing about David. And that's how I would, because I've had other story ideas, I stop and I sketch them out because the character will just keep talking to you, at least with me, and won't let me go, until they feel like they've been heard. So I sketch it out and then I get back to what it is I was doing. But I think, Neil, you want to say something?
I think, just to be honest, I think your answers are because you're sophisticated writers. You've written 7 books. I think at your stage, honestly, you need more discipline. Warren Buffett famously said that, okay, what do you want to do with your life? Write down the top 25 things you want to do with your life. All right, rank them in order. All right, the top 5, that's what you can do. The rest of them is you must never, ever do those, ever. Because if you do those, you will not get the top 5 done. So if you decide what you actually want, and decide today, before you leave this room, and I'm serious, like, which character you're picking, do it now. Do not take notes on the other people. My suggestion, I could be wrong, this is what I would suggest, because once you get disciplined, then you can do what these guys do, because they're professional writers now. But in your stage, it sounds you have so many ideas you want to keep going. Don't do it. Do one and finish it.
Yeah, that was my 20s, sir. Always coming up like, hey, Marcus, guess what? I just came up with an idea for blah, 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 such and such. And you can do that, and you'll never go anywhere. Until you actually, like, clear everything out the way, you see your end goal, and then you go get it.
Awesome. Next question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Hi. Sorry, I can't really talk because thingies. So if I sound like I have braces, then sorry. But I wrote my question down so that I wouldn't forget it. It's when you're creating conflict and obstacles for the characters in the story, how do you decide those conflicts? Is it a matter of getting over milestones or asking what's the worst that can happen? Or is it based on the themes and messages that you want to convey in this story? Or all 3?
For me, it's all 3. I tend to want to raise the stakes and make things as dire as possible, and then figure out how I can bring them through it and how the character's going to fight through and get to where they want to be. But I think that those obstacles also need to be informed by the themes of the story. So, I mean, the character's whole journey is informed by those themes. So it all needs to connect on some level. You know, it's not, I didn't pull it out of my ear.
Plot for me. I mean, what the story is about then reveals what the obstacles are within that story. And that's where I generally sort of go, and that's what I hear, you know, when I'm trying to figure out what's going on with the character and the struggles that they're in. Does that help?
No, yeah, that helps a lot.
I try to look at it like conflict. So in our stories, our conflict is like a humongous machine robot that's going to come down and try to destroy the world or whatever. But in real life, how do the conflicts usually come at you? Like, have trouble waking up and you know you got to be at your table at 10 o'clock in the morning. You know, like those conflicts, those are like the real life things. And I think that you can put that kind of stuff into your stories as well as some of the, you know, big stuff. But it just makes the story more relatable for people, you know? Like you have that person that won't be quiet when you're trying to go to sleep. You know, sometimes that, you know, just the little things that happen in real life, I think that's always intriguing to me.
And April and Neil, how do you guys?
For me, I think it's character-based. It's how strong do you want your character to be and what situation you put them in. And that can be as difficult as diffusing a bomb or having a conversation with your mother that you never wanted to have. I mean, depending on your character, they can both be equally powerful, moving and scary.
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Are we able to
How do you
get
create
the?
conflict
Are we able to
in your
get the
books?
next question? Just because.
Next question. I'll be the bad guy. I don't care.
Hi, I'm Jean, and all of you are doing great things. I was wondering how each of you got out some of your first, I guess, nascent work, or where you might recommend that, like first-time writers and comic book creators or filmmakers might get out their work.
I can chime real quick to say the best solution is use those social networks to your advantage. There's groups of people that are interested in what you're interested in, and find those groups and find people that aren't like, you know, trolls, and then befriend them and literally just post your work. I'm not sure, I can't speak for writers. I don't know if there's a safe way to post your writing without getting it ripped off every day. But for me, artistically, I can post a sketch, I can post an idea and get instantaneous feedback. Okay. The more people that I guess the bigger your following, the more feedback you can get. I can post a sketch and get 90 likes, or I can get 3,000 likes, and then they're all posting, I love this, I hate this, or usually it's I love it. But that's good. If we get to that point, that's good. But or they like it, or they like it because of this. So, but use social networks, talk to people.
We can't take any more questions because we have like 5 minutes left, and I definitely want everyone here to know what these wonderful artists are up to now and how to maybe get in contact with them. So, can you briefly say a project that's in the works or just released? Can you?
I currently have a Kickstarter, which you mentioned, for theatrics. That's it's the highest reviewed, most positive review I've had for comics so far. It's actually set in New York and Manhattan, which is great because I don't really know the city, so that's a really stupid move. Right, what you know. It's guy's king of Broadway in the 1920s. He's living the fast life, but he gets beaten up and left for dead one day. He loses his looks, he loses his job, he loses his money, he loses his girl, he loses his apartment, he loses everything. But it's what he does next that's interesting. So if you like that, check theatricscomic.com. You can read it all for free online.
Awesome. April?
I'm continuing the Gwen 7 saga, although I'm deviating from science fiction to write a fantasy / steampunk novel, and it's very challenging for me. But I still hope to have it done on time, and that's what's going to be next.
You can find Godspeed, a sci-fi movie born in the near future, at godspeedsci-fi-movie.com.
Next, I'm going to be putting together an online platform for sci-fi and comic culture fans like you guys to help you find indie creators that you will love. It's called narazu.com. That's Narazu. And I hope that you will go and tell us what kind of sci-fi comics and cool stuff that you like. We'll try to help you find the best indie content creators for your preference.
And we're currently working on Tuskegee Air's graphic novel. We did a Kickstarter for it. We kind of raised like $74,000. It was the craziest month of my life. But we're on the books. We got to do 2 graphic novels. We're working on trying to get it to animation afterwards. Our first issue is almost done. We're a little behind schedule, but we're working our butts off. Do they?
No, I'm one of them.
Okay.
I can tell you don't mind.
That's what y'all say to my face, but those emails I get. Can we get an update?
TuskegeeAirs.com is the website. Tuskegee Airs. If you search it on Facebook and Twitter, we're gonna add Instagram and stuff too.
And if we couldn't answer your questions, please feel free to email any of us. I'm sure we are all open to that.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry we didn't have more time.
We wish you could get into more of them.
Definitely. And we are sevnetwork.com. That's sevnetwork.com. We have some online talk shows, actually one that will be live tonight, 8:30, talking about the con, and we talk about everything Comic-Con every week. We also have some more talk shows and some film and TV stuff in the works. We have a show on cable right now. Please check us out. Please support the independent creatives. We also, if anyone has a project that we can promote or help you promote, or you would like to write for us or be a content producer, just let us know. Again, thank our panel so much for their knowledge. Brian Granum, Marcus Williams, Therese Renee Murphy, April Adams, Neil Gibson, Celia Peters. Thank you so much for your knowledge, your wisdom. And again, ask them questions, get their websites, contact us, and thank you so much.